Hello everyone, I am Chatsidy Walker of Culture Cocktails, and welcome to Crime Tales. This is a show about true crime. We're going to be covering unsolved mysteries, solved mysteries, and shocking cases. Some of them in my area of upstate South Carolina, and some cases that went national. So if you're into a good cocktail, into true crime, then this is your vibe. I will be making cocktails while telling you guys true crime stories. So without further ado, let's get started. Grab your cocktails. On December 12th, 2006, Asha Wiley had been missing it from her job for a couple of days, so a few co-workers went over to her apartment in Belton Woods, located in Anderson, to see if they could locate Asha Wiley. When they went over to her apartment, they discovered that she was in her apartment unalive. She was found strangled to death. Police arrived and they spoke with some of her neighbors, and they said that they saw a red Buick with a white top parked outside of her apartment. And at that time, that was all the details that they had on Asha Wiley. So I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of background about Asha Wiley. I couldn't find a lot of information on Asha because maybe the times were a little bit different. This was in 2006. Social media wasn't what it is today. So I couldn't find much on her, but I did find out that she was 27 years old. She had an 8-year-old daughter who was at the time with her friend in, I wanna say Orangeburg, South Carolina, and that'll be important later on in the case. She was known to be a light. From the comments that I did happen to find, she's very missed, and a few people on her online obituary stated they wondered how her daughter was doing, and they thought about her. And one of the comments was actually from 2022. So Asha is still thought about to this day, and I'm sure she is very missed by her family. So that's pretty much all I have on her, on Asha, in her case. So a couple days later, on December the 14th, on Tribble Street, Kawana Burns' son and Kawana Burns' cousin was walking to Kawana's house after they tried to get in contact with her by cell phone, and they couldn't. So they walked over, because they wasn't far from where she lived, so they walked over to her house. And when they first approached, they thought she was asleep, but as they got closer, they realized that Kawana Burns was unalive. She had also been strangled to death, and she was also tied and bound. Her son went with her son's jump rope. She was bound and tied with her son's jump rope. Her daughter, her 2-year-old daughter, was there with her. She was alive, and she was laying on her mom. And according to reports, a cousin said that her son grabbed her sister and they cried together. And of course the authorities were called, and the investigators put 2 and 2 together. They start linking these ladies' case together because 2 ladies strangled not too far from each other and not, a couple days from each other. So it was looking very suspicious. So they linked the cases and they start investigating. So they came to the conclusion, we need to find this red Buick with the white top that Asha's neighbors stated was there. So 2 days later, fortunately, on Saturday, a couple days after finding Kawana Burns' body, a red Buick with the white top was stopped going through a traffic stop in Douglasville, Georgia. And that's when they found Raymond Rivera. And he was the driver of the Buick, with the white top. They questioned Rivera, and they say this man spoke for 4 hours confessing to the murders of Kawana Burns and Asha Wiley. And according to his reports, this is how he says it went down. I take everything that Rivera said with a grain of salt, because lied so much throughout this investigation that you can't really take anything he says seriously, but we can go by the evidence, and this is how it went in order of his events. So he was coming through from Washington, going to Florida, where he was from, and he stopped in Anderson, South Carolina at a gas station. That's where he met Asha Wiley. They met up later at a McDonald's on Clemson Boulevard in Anderson. They got to know each other a little bit better. So later on, Asha and Rivera ended up at her apartment in Belton Woods, where they played card games, watched movies, and eventually had sex. Things went left when Rivera wanted more sex from Asha. He stated that he asked for it, she said no. He proceeded to go downstairs, grab a knife, put the knife to her neck, and asked again for sex. Again, she declined and ultimately caused her death. He said he then strangled her. He wiped down all of the evidence that he had that he thought he may have put in her home. He clothed her and laid her down, and then he left. And on December the 13th is where, and Asha's body was found on December 12th. December the 13th, he is still lingering around in Anderson, South Carolina. He's up at the mall, like nothing has happened, guys. He's just parlaying in Anderson, and that's where he meets Kawana Burns. She worked at Belk's in Anderson Mall, and they hit it off. And Rivera doesn't look like a guy that you would, you thought, was capable of that. I know looks can be deceiving and you have to be careful, but sometimes, people play that role really well. So they met, they end up hitting it off, and Kawana Burns invites him back to her home on Tribble Street. Kawana had just moved in her home a day before, and she was still unpacking. From reports, I'm not sure if they actually went by and met her family that lived near her, or that she spoke with them and said, I have a guy here, but I seen reports where they fixed 2 plates for her and Rivera while he helped her unpack. He said while they were there and he was unpacking, she was in the living room and she was talking about her family and how she just couldn't wait for them to come and help her unpack. She was so excited about her new place. She worked so hard to get a new place for her and her kids, and she was just really excited. Rivera stated that because of the way Burns was talking and because of the family that she had, he said he started to get jealous. It was something that he did not have, and he didn't like it. He didn't like the fact that she was gloating and going on about how she moved and how she had family to come and help her. So he said that's when he took it upon himself. He decided he was going to kill her. So he said in the hallway of Kawana's home, he tried to give her a kiss. She declined the kiss, and he strangled her. There's more details, and out of respect of the family that may see this and the victims of her kids and stuff, I don't want to say the details, but you can definitely look them up. I'm going to drop the sources below so you guys can go and check that out yourself. And so he ended up strangling her, and she fought. Kawana, she fought for everything she had, and he even stated to himself, and that's one thing I do believe that he said to be true, that Kawana put up a fight. She knew her daughter was in there, and she didn't know the fate of her daughter. She was gonna fight all she could, and it's just so sad to think about. I'm actually getting goosebumps just thinking about the story and how close to home she was. I gave the background of Asha, and I want to give a little bit of background on Kawana as well. I actually know Kawana's mom personally. Her name is Gino, and she is a very sweet and funny lady. definitely didn't deserve this. So I know Kawana grew up in a family kind of similar to mine, a nice, well-knit, close family that just like to get together and have a good time eating. I know she is very missed by her family. Kawana had a daughter who was 2 years old at the time, who was found with her, and she had a 9-year-old son who actually found her. So, and I know Kawana to just, from what I heard, she's just was an awesome all-around great person, so fun to be around, and you know, someone that was really trying to change her life for the better. And the picture that you see, you can tell like that she was that girl. She was that 90s it girl. Like you can tell with the rings on her fingers and the necklace and the golds. Like if you were a 90s black girl growing up in the South, Kawana Burns is what you wanted to be when you got older. She was just that girl, believe me. And as you can see on this picture, she was just, you can tell she was just a light. So that's how he said it went down. He said that he took Kawana's life because he was jealous of her. Now, throughout the case, Rivera changed his story a couple of times. He also stated that he was a contract killer and that someone left instructions in a mailbox in Florida for him where he lived near his home, and that's where he got the idea to come and kill Kawana. And Asha was just in the way because she had seen his car, what kind of car he was driving. And also, he had been here 2 weeks before, scoping out Anderson to see, you know, what he was going to do, according to Rivera. None of that seemed, when the investigators, you know, looked into that, it didn't seem true. It didn't add up, any of the things he was saying. Some may have really good reason to believe that Rivera was a contract killer. Me, on the other hand, it's just really hard for me to believe that. It's hard for me to believe anything Rivera says. I just think he was a really cold, calculated killer that had no right or no business to come into Anderson, South Carolina, and do what he did. So that's pretty much the case of Kawana Burns and Asha Wiley. I don't really want to go into too much detail about Rivera, but I will say that he was trialed. He was sentenced to death in 2010. Unfortunately, trial was overturned and the Supreme Court granted him a new trial because in the first trial, the judge did not let Rivera speak. And I mean, I can understand why. During the whole trial, Rivera was very nonchalant. He was smiling. He would look back at Gino, which is Kawana Burns' mom, and smirk at her, smile at her, just giving her he wasn't giving anything. He never gave anything this entire case, but in that courtroom, he definitely did not do well. So when he asked to speak on his behalf, the judge just was not having it. The judge was like, "You have said enough, sir, with your smirks and your smiles throughout this case. We don't want to hear anything from you." I agree. Unfortunately, everyone is entitled to a fair trial, even someone as evil as Rivera. So in 2012, he had a new sentence and he was sentenced to life in prison. At that trial, he did state that he was very sorry. He said that he didn't really have a reason to come and kill Kawana, just besides the fact that Kawana and Asha Wiley, just besides the fact that he was a cold, calculated killer and didn't really have any intentions at all. No intentions. So that was that. In my opinion, Rivera was just a really sick guy. He came into Anderson. I think that Rivera had something sexually something sexual about him. You can do a little bit more research on him. It said that he was abused as a child. Also, he had a charge in 1999 where he strangled a woman. She didn't die, but she did press charges, and he did do time in jail for that as well. So guys, that is the case on Kawana Burns and Asha Wiley. I'm not going to be going into too much details on a lot of these local cases, just because of the simple fact that, you know, people have to live through that, and it's so close to home. I just really want to be careful and respectful about what I say and how I say it. So thank you guys for tuning in. This cocktail we made today, I thought would be fitting for the case. I always look at these black women as black Barbies, and we are just so the it girls, and you know, we don't get a lot of love, we don't get a lot of awareness on the cases. So I would like to cover the cases, and I would like to name this cocktail a Black Barbie. And it is vodka, pink. I tried to get pink grapefruit, but I couldn't find it, so I got white. That'll just have to do. I have some of those pine berries. You're gonna use a little bit of sour, a little bit of black raspberry, and shake it up really well, and of course just do what you saw me do. And you also have a black. I'll put the ingredients, I will list the ingredients down below in the description, guys, because I know I didn't do a good job of telling you what was in there. I will list them, and hopefully you guys enjoy. This was my very first case, guys. If you can't tell, I am very much nervous. If I make any mistakes, please charge it to my mind and not my heart. I'm just trying to bring you guys good content while making great cocktails, and hopefully it sticks. And like I said, some of the cases I'm gonna be doing will be local. Some of the local cases that made national or should have went national, I will be covering those. If you guys have any cases that you would like for me to cover, just drop them in the comments below. And thank you so much. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Every little thing counts, guys. Thank you.